primordial vengeful spirit. Hanju narrowed his eyes and fell into deep thought. He was not afraid. In any case, the ultimate god of punishment had already said that these primordial vengeful spirits could not threaten him, so they were even less his match. However, existence represented a possibility that could not be ignored. Hanju asked, "There's no way to eliminate the primordial vengeful spirits under the chaos forever?" The ultimate god of punishment shook his head. "I'm also looking. Not for the time being." His tone changed as he said, "I plan to set up a chaotic assembly, and I want to join forces with you. With your reputation and my authority, I will attract the chaotic geniuses to participate. I will provide all sorts of opportunities to reward the outstanding geniuses in the meeting. I'll set this event as 3 stages. The first round is below the chaos. It's ranked by killing the primordial vengeful spirits." Hanju felt that this was a good thing. At least, this could promote the development of the prodigies. Those mighty figures would definitely use all means to nurture geniuses in order to obtain these generous rewards. Hanju asked, "What's the threshold? What's the deadline?" The ultimate god of punishment smiled. "Anyone with a lifespan below 100 million years can participate. It will be held once every 10 million years. How about that?" Hanju narrowed his eyes. 100 great Tao divine spirits will appear every 100 million years? He felt that it was a little fast. Hanju was impressed. It had to be said that this fellow was indeed ambitious and dared to do it. Hanju shook his head. "Forget it, I won't participate. I can watch the battle." It was fine as long as it was not the main body. The ultimate god of punishment laughed. "I'm just saying. Who dares to fight for the eternal peak of the chaos after hearing that you're participating?" Hanju narrowed his eyes and asked, "Do you think there are stronger existences above us?" The ultimate god of punishment was silent. Seeing this, Hanju knew that he had already sensed it. "So, I'm not the only one who feels this way. In the past, I thought that the primordial ancestor god was the strongest, but I kept feeling uneasy after he died. The supreme rules are so powerful. What are we in front of them?" The ultimate god of punishment sighed. He stepped forward and recounted his encounter. Hanju's question pulled the relationship between the two sides closer. They chatted for an hour before ending the dream. Hanju also obtained a favorable impression of the ultimate god of punishment, but it was not high, only 3 stars. His will return to his body. Han Qinger was still arguing with him, wanting to travel to the immortal world. Hanju said, "I'll let you out when you reach the pseudo-sage realm. Before that, I'll teach you some mystical powers." A pseudo-sage was the ceiling in the immortal world. Han Qinger wouldn't encounter danger with this cultivation. Han Qinger's face fell. From a zenith heaven golden immortal to a pseudo-sage, she had to cultivate for at least 10,000 years. This lecture lasted for 100 years. She opened her eyes. Her eyes were a little unfocused, but they quickly became clear and firm. She said in surprise, "Father, your mystical powers are so powerful." Many mystical powers appeared in her mind. Not only that, but her cultivation level also increased greatly. This girl had always been so rude in the past, but she was respectful to him today. "Now you know how powerful I am. Are you confident in cultivating to the pseudo-sage realm?" Hanju asked. Han Qinger nodded and left like a gust of wind. Hanju smiled in satisfaction. This was more like his daughter. She had to have a desire to be strong even if she was a woman. He checked the emails to see what was going on in his circle of friends. It had been a long time since he had read the emails. "Your disciple Dao Sovereign was attacked by an inauspicious evil, X69093682. Your disciple Zhao Xinyuan. Your good friend Yi Tian was attacked by the Great Tao Divine Punisher, X3. Your good friend Foolish Sword Sage was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure. Tao Sovereign, Zhao Xinyuan, Jiang Yi, and Laodan were still being beaten. Huang Zuntian's opportunity was within Hanju's expectations. This kid would soar sooner or later. Blood essence transformed into descendants? What was he doing? Hanju pinched his fingers to deduce. The evil heavenly emperor actually created 20,000 descendants and allowed them to control the world that the heavenly court had attacked. It felt like he was conferring the title of vassal king. Unknowingly, the evil heavenly emperor had already reached the perfected freedom sage realm. The evil heavenly emperor seemed not far from attaining the Tao. Hanju continued reading the emails with relish. 5 minutes later, he entered his cultivation state again. Han Qinger's cultivation improved by leaps and bounds while Hanju was in seclusion. 50,000 years later, Han Qinger finally stepped into the pseudo-sage realm. She discovered that this was not the heavenly Tao at all. There was no sign of the immortal world inside or outside the universe, let alone the myriad worlds below the immortal world. At this moment, she suddenly discovered that there were two other people in this universe. They were Liu Bei and Jiang Jueshi. Jiang Jueshi couldn't hide his figure and aura after being attacked by the inauspicious evil. It was to scare away the experts who wanted to invade the universe. Who? Jiang Jueshi's cold shout entered Han Qinger's ears, scaring her so much that her guts almost ruptured and her soul trembled. Han Qinger's beautiful eyes widened in disbelief. Who was the other party? Just the other party's voice caused her to feel an unprecedented fear. Han Qinger retracted her divine sense in fear. She was so nervous that her body stiffened. She felt like she was in trouble. Would it attract trouble? She recalled what she had seen in the immortal world. A cultivator had said that sometimes, a divine sense would attract death if it accidentally provoked a mighty figure. She recalled the terrifying feeling just now and became more and more afraid. She hesitated for a moment but still decided to find Hanju. She entered the Taoist temple and called out carefully, "Father." Han Qinger stopped in front of Hanju, but he ignored her, making her even more anxious. On the other side, in a star, Jiang Jueshi asked in surprise, "Why does this universe have divine sense? Furthermore, I can't even deduce where it is?" Jiang Jueshi's expression changed drastically. Liu Bei hurriedly said, "You don't have to worry. The mighty figure who created this universe is an ascetic. He has surpassed the great Tao Sage realm and is a supreme existence in the chaos. He has already handed the universe to me. I'm the master of this universe." Jiang Jueshi's expression softened. "What's this mighty figure's name?" Liu Bei shook his head. "I can't say, I can't say." Jiang Jueshi frowned. "Then, my arrival." Jiang Jueshi was flattered. He had been here for so long and had not sensed the other party's existence. He naturally would not question the other party's cultivation. As were the mighty figures in the chaos were immeasurable. Since this mighty figure admired him, why not stay and rely on him in the future? No matter where he was, he had to have a backing. Otherwise, he could only be a rat running around. Forget it. The coldness on Jiang Jueshi's face dissipated. He sighed and continued cultivating. Liu Bei knew that he had let down his guard, so he smiled and did not say anything else. It wasn't good to say too much. Everything depended on time. He believed that Jiang Jueshi knew what to do. He had a clear conscience. In the third Tao field, Han Qinger stayed for an hour before leaving, no longer disturbing Hanju's cultivation. She returned to the tree. Chingwana opened her eyes and asked, "Why are you in a hurry to find your father? Didn't I say not to disturb his cultivation?" Han Qing'er curled her lips and hesitated for a moment, but she still told her what had happened. She was afraid that hiding this matter would cause a calamity. Chingwana couldn't help but laugh. Han Qing'er was furious. "Mother, what are you laughing at? Do you think I'm lying to you?" Chingwana shook her head. "No, I believe you. However, the cultivators in this universe are not enemies. They're actually your father's disciples." Huh? Chingwana was stunned. Disciples? She was dumbfounded. How terrifying was Jiang Jueshi's voice. She even thought that her father might not be his match. She didn't expect him to be her father's disciple? She hurriedly asked, "Mother, why didn't father bring them in? He didn't mention them, either?" "Your father has many disciples. Aren't you uninterested in his story? He has told you many things since you were young, but you always avoid him and argue alone. Blame yourself if you want to blame someone." Chingwana shook her head with a mocking expression. Han Qing'er thought about it carefully and agreed. She became interested in Jiang Jueshi and started to ask about him. Chingwana did not hide anything. The current Han Qing'er was already a pseudo-sage. She should know the higher realms. Han Qing'er was stunned after she finished speaking. New novels chapters are published and Freedom Sage. 2 realms higher than her. It was a major realm. No wonder she was so afraid. Han Qing'er asked excitedly, "Is he the most powerful disciple under father?" This time, Chingwana was in a dilemma. She really did not know. "I only know that this Jiang Jueshi doesn't know of your father's existence. I believe that your father has other disciples. Back then, there were countless disciples in the 100-Peak Immortal River when we went to see your aunt." Chingwana sighed. Speaking of which, she didn't know Hanju very well. Hanju was also mysterious to her. However, he was still her husband no matter how mysterious he was. Hanju had been unfathomable from the first time they met. She was already used to it. Han Qing'er continued to ask like a curious baby. Time passed. Year after year passed. Another 100,000 years passed. Hanju opened his eyes and frowned. Then, he smiled in satisfaction. He was about to break through after another seclusion cycle. He sent a voice transmission to Han Qing'er. She quickly arrived. Her cultivation level had already reached the late-stage pseudo-sage realm and was already close to the primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortal realm. "Father! Father!" Han Qing'er called out excitedly. She went to Hanju's side and started to rub his shoulders with a fawning smile. Hanju said, "You want to return to the immortal world?" "Can I?" Han Qing'er asked carefully. Hanju stood up and smiled. "Of course. I'll bring you there today." "Really?" "Yes, go say goodbye to your mother. I don't know when you'll return." "All right." Han Qing'er turned around and left. Chingwana was with her when she returned. Han Qing'er said helplessly, "Mother, I'm already 200,000 years old. Don't always treat me like a child. You followed my father when you were 20. How can you trap me?" Chingwana choked, not knowing how to persuade her. Hanju said, "That's all. My children and grandchildren will take care of themselves." "Thank you, father." Han Qing'er was extremely excited. Hanju teleported away with her. Chingwana felt desolate as she looked at the empty Taoist temple. She suddenly understood how her parents felt when they saw her leave. In the 100-Peak Immortal River, Hanju and Han Qing'er appeared and came to the 33rd heaven. Heavenly Venerate Xian-du sent a voice transmission to the Will left in the 100 Peak Immortal River several years ago, inviting him to the Universal Hall. The father and daughter arrived in front of the Universal Hall. Han Qing'er asked, "Why are we here? Do you want to see little you?" Han Ju didn't say anything and walked towards the door. It opened, and Han Qing'er hurriedly followed him inside. The father and daughter came in front of Heavenly Venerate Xian-du after entering the hall. Heavenly Venerate Xian-du stood up and bowed. Then, he sent a voice transmission to the sages. He looked at Han Qing'er and sighed. The Heavenly Sage's daughter is indeed extraordinary. She's already a pseudo-sage. Han Ju and Han Qing'er looked similar, and their auras were also similar. "This is my daughter, Han Qing'er. Greet Heavenly Venerate Xian-du." Han Ju introduced them briefly. Hearing this, Han Qing'er hurriedly bowed. "Heavenly Venerate Xian-du? The leader of the Heavenly Tao Sages?" Han Qing'er was shocked. She had heard of the legends of Heavenly Venerate Xian-du and the Divine Might Heavenly Sage when she traveled the immortal world 200,000 years ago. Heavenly Sage's daughter. While Han Qing'er was shocked and curious, Han Ju and Heavenly Venerate Xian-du sat down side by side. Han Ju waved at her, signaling her to stand behind him. One sage after another arrived. Every sage had to bow to Han Ju and Heavenly Venerate Xian-du after they entered the hall. Han Qing'er was secretly surprised. She was already a pseudo-sage, but she couldn't see through their cultivation levels. What were they if they were not sages? All the sages arrived not long after. Even the Foolish Sword Sage, Great Sage Void Soul, and Red Fate came. It was rare to see Han Ju, so they naturally wouldn't miss it. The Foolish Sword Sage stared at Han Ju with flickering eyes. He wanted to challenge him, but he was still not confident when he saw him again. The sages noticed Han Qing'er behind Han Ju and guessed. Han Qing'er was immediately happy when she saw Han Yu. She winked at him, making Han Yu feel quite embarrassed. Long Hao asked curiously, "Master, who is this behind you?" "Master?" Han Qing'er's eyes lit up as she sized him up. Was this also her father's disciple? The sages praised Han Qing'er's talent. This was the first time the new sages saw Han Ju. They were already in awe. They couldn't help but sigh when they heard that the potential of the Heavenly Sage's daughter was so terrifying. Achieving the pseudo-sage realm at 200,000 years old was also a top genius in the entire immortal world. For a time, the sages became active. Wouldn't their relationship with the Divine Might Heavenly Sage improve if they could take Han Qing'er as their disciple? Heavenly Venerate Xian-du looked around and said, "I called you here today for a huge matter that can affect the entire chaos. This is also an opportunity for the Heavenly Tao." Indeed, they were all Heavenly Tao sages. Then, was her father the legendary Divine Might Heavenly Sage who had repeatedly protected the Heavenly Tao? Han Qing'er was so excited that she felt unreal. She often heard legends about the Divine Might Heavenly Sage when she traveled the immortal world in the past. Divine Might guarded the Heavenly Tao and Xian-du ruled all living beings. This sentence spread the most. It was enough to prove the Divine Might Heavenly Sage's importance and status to the Heavenly Tao. It was very difficult for Han Qing'er to associate the Divine Might Heavenly Sage with her father. The legendary Divine Might Heavenly Sage was peerlessly powerful and domineering. He looked down on all the mighty forces in the chaos. How majestic was that? Han Qing'er couldn't help but look at Han Ju. Her father did not look domineering apart from being good-looking. The leader of the divine spirits and our heavenly sage will jointly hold the chaotic assembly. All living beings below 100 million years old can participate and decide the top 10 of the chaos and the top in history. Heavenly Venerate Xian-du glanced at Han Ju and slowly said. It was the same as what Han Ju had learned from the ultimate god of punishment. The sages were all excited and looked at him. The hall exploded upon seeing Hanju nod. In that case, the leader of the divine spirits has acknowledged that the heavenly sage is on the same level as him? That should be the case. No matter how strong the leader of the divine spirits is, can he be stronger than 20,000 divine authority generals? No wonder the 5 great divine punishers came. So, that's their plan. Is there a need to? Who dares to question the strongest in the chaos? The heavenly Tao has so many geniuses. Let the chaos see our foundation. The sages were extremely heroic and became more and more excited. The strongest in the chaos? Han Qing'er looked at Hanju's back in surprise. Father is so powerful? She also knew that the chaos was endless. To be called the strongest, how strong was he? No wonder his disciple was a freedom sage. Han Qing'er's expression became strange. My father is the strongest, so why should I cultivate? Who can harm me? Han Qing'er thought about Hanju's attitude. Perhaps all living beings thought that he was the strongest, but in fact, there was an existence that made him extremely afraid. It was precisely because of this that he had been in seclusion. Han Qing'er suddenly found a goal. It was definitely not to have fun. The chaotic assembly will begin in 10 million years. The sages can prepare. To participate in such a meeting, a sage will definitely have to appear. It will be embarrassing if we send a pseudo-sage, Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said seriously. The sages nodded, and their eyes burned with anticipation. The Heavenly Tao sage only cared about the Heavenly Tao in the end. The great Tao divine spirits cared about the chaos. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said, second, the Heavenly Tao has 2 more sage positions. They would have directly decided if it was in the past. But Hanju was here today, so they had to seek his opinion. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du looked at him. Hanju said, a position should be given to young Tiandong. Very direct. Han Qing'er was secretly nervous. Wasn't her father afraid of offending the other sages? Although he was the strongest, hidden enemies could always plot in the dark. Wasn't he afraid of being abandoned by everyone? Good! Amazing! That young Tiandong is indeed impressive. He managed the order of the Netherworld in an orderly manner. The Netherworld will probably not be convinced if he isn't a sage. As expected of a heavenly sage, he immediately chose the most suitable candidate. Young Che clapped in admiration. Su Dudao added, that's right. Sages don't only talk about talent, cultivation, and achievements. We control the heavenly Tao not because of cultivation, but because of our overall vision and Tao heart that thinks for all living beings. Qiu Shilai, Sect Master Tianju, Pan Xin, Heavenly Venerate Wufa, and the others began to flatter him. Hanju's disciples were stunned. They cursed them for being shameless and hurriedly flattered him. How could they let outsiders flatter their own master? The foolish sword sage was calm. He felt that this was very normal. If not for Hanju, the heavenly Tao would be nothing. He could destroy the heavenly Tao with a single strike. Han Qing'er looked at the scene in front of her and did not know whether to laugh or cry. She also saw clearly how important Hanju was in the heavenly Tao. He was even more important than Heavenly Venerate Xian Du. Hanju only wanted one sage position and let them fight for the remaining one. Sages were sages, after all. They had to be reasonable and would not fight until their faces turned red. After the sage position was finalized, Heavenly Venerate Xian Du mentioned the development of the Heavenly Tao. Recently, the 3 pure sacred world vaguely showed signs of going against the Heavenly Tao. Other than poaching geniuses, the cultivators of the 2 sides conflicted when they wandered in the chaos. But 2 tigers could not share one mountain. The 3 pure sacred world had great Tao sages and Laozi. Laozi had established the Sword Dao and was the Dao ancestor's eldest disciple. Although his reputation was inferior to the Divine Might Heavenly Sage, the difference was not too great. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu looked at Hanju and asked, "What if the Heavenly Dao and the three pure sacred world conflict?" Hanju said casually, "You're not even afraid of it. Why ask me?" Heavenly Venerate Xiandu immediately knew what was going on. The foolish sword sage became excited. Does the Divine Might Heavenly Sage want to fight Laozi? Hanju's words were very casual, but they were domineering in the ears of the sages. This was the Divine Might Heavenly Sage. He wasn't afraid of anyone. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu smiled and said, "I'm naturally not afraid. The one in charge of the three pure sacred world is the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning. As for my master, he's in seclusion all year round. I'll still choose the Heavenly Dao if we really force him to attack." Hanju nodded slightly and didn't say anything else. Then, Heavenly Venerate Xiandu instructed some things. The sages dispersed after they discussed and finalized. Hanju stood up, and Han Qing'er followed closely behind. Long Hao, Ji Xianshen, Fang Liang, Han Yu, Qin Ling, and the other sages of the hidden sect surrounded him. They began to get close to Han Qing'er. Han Qing'er was flattered. She didn't expect so many senior brothers, junior disciples, and even grand disciples to be hidden among the sages. Hanju snorted. "Take care of her when she appears in the Heavenly Dao in the future. Otherwise, I'll punish you. None of you can escape." The other sages had yet to walk out of the Universal Hall. Their expressions changed and they remembered these words. They weren't stupid. They knew that Hanju was also pointing at them. "Father, I'm a pseudo-sage. Who in the immortal world can hurt me?" Han Qing'er refused to listen and said coquettishly. However, she was happy in her heart. It had been a long time since she felt such fatherly love, making her touched and ashamed. Hanju smiled and didn't reply. The disciples promised. Discover new Tories at Vubin. Co. Red Fate twisted her waist and walked in front of Han Qing'er. She chuckled and said, "Heavenly Sage, why don't you let me take your daughter as my disciple? I'll definitely teach her all my Dao techniques." With that said, the expressions of the sages who wanted to take Han Qing'er in as their disciple changed drastically, but they did not dare to fight her. After all, Red Fate was a great Dao sage. She could suppress them with one hand. Han Qing'er was stunned by Red Fate's appearance and temperament. She instinctively felt threatened, not for herself, but for her mother. She subconsciously looked at her father. Hanju's expression didn't change as he said, "Let's see what this girl thinks." Han Qing'er said, "Father, I shouldn't go to the immortal world. I plan to cultivate with you for 1,000,000 years before going out to train." Hanju looked at her in surprise and saw that she was serious. He was relieved. It seemed that the fortuitous encounter had made her understand. Hanju waved his sleeve and disappeared with Han Qing'er. Red Fate sighed in pity. The primordial heavenly prison made her loyal to Hanju, but it didn't erase her thoughts about him. Red Fate shook her head and disappeared. The hidden sect disciples were still discussing Han Qing'er. They were still very curious about this little junior sister. The news would probably spread throughout the hidden sect soon. On the other side, Hanju brought Han Qing'er back to the third Dao field. "Father, aren't we going to see eldest mother and second mother?" Han Qing'er asked curiously. Hanju said, "They have to cultivate, too. Don't disturb them if you don't have anything to say to them. To us, we don't lack time." Han Qing'er felt that it made sense. She hugged his right arm and said coquettishly, "Father, can you tell me your story again?" She was very curious about her father after this incident. Hanju didn't hide anything and told her his story again. Unlike Qingwana, he still wanted to show off to his daughter. Therefore, he deliberately emphasized their strength when he mentioned those enemies. Han Qing'er sometimes exclaimed. Hanju finished speaking several hours later. It had to be said that although he had not experienced much, every single one of his experiences was a major event. Any one of them could be written into a novel. Furthermore, he had yet to talk about the Dark Forbidden Lord. Looking at Han Qing'er again, this girl was already full of admiration, making Hanju extremely happy. Han Qing'er said excitedly, as if she had found her goal. Han Qing'er said proudly, "Don't worry about my potential." With that, she waved her hand and left. Hanju shook his head and laughed. He sat on the mat and started cultivating. Next was to break through. Under the old tree, Qingwana felt a gust of wind. She opened her eyes and saw her daughter standing in front of her. "Qing'er, why are you back?" Qingwana asked in surprise. Han Qing'er smiled and said, "Mother, I understand. Cultivating is more important." She didn't explain further. She walked to the side and sat down to cultivate. Qingwana looked at her in a daze. For some reason, she saw Hanju's shadow on her daughter. It was not her looks, but a feeling. She was curious. What method did Hanju use to change Han Qing'er's personality? In the dark void, a dilapidated huge wooden ship advanced. It seemed like an invisible beast was pulling the ship. The 5 divine punishers were cultivating on the ship. Tian was feeling bored when he suddenly saw Han Tuo smiling secretly. "What are you laughing at? You look so cheap." Tian yawned and asked casually. Han Tuo rolled his eyes and said, "I learned something in the chaotic domain just now. I have a younger sister." Tian immediately perked up when he heard that. "What's our sister's name?" "What sister?" "Hee hee, I'm your big brother." "Hee hee. Tell me." "Her name is Han Qing'er. She was born 200,000 years ago, and she's already a pseudo-sage. She's cultivating beside my father." "Impressive. As expected of Godfather's child. Ask your senior brothers when Godfather will acknowledge me." Han Tuo snorted. "My senior brothers are also wandering outside. How can I ask them?" "That's true. Dao Sovereign, Zhao Xinyuan, and Jiang Yi are causing trouble everywhere. Many great Dao divine spirits have already accused them. Speaking of which, they owe me a favor." Tian smiled and rolled his eyes. It was unknown what he was thinking. Han Tuo was about to speak when the huge wooden ship suddenly trembled. The divine punishers stood up one after another. Han Tuo was the same. He frowned and looked ahead. A huge stone tablet appeared in the darkness. It was riddled with holes. A terrifying wind blew, resisting the wooden ship. "What the hell is that?" Tian asked in a low voice. There were countless holes on the huge stone tablet, and they seemed to be crawling. They looked like worms and bones, looking ghastly and terrifying. Han Tuo's heart beat faster for some reason. An uneasiness that had not appeared for a long time surged in his heart. "Prepare for battle," Han Tuo said in a low voice. He raised his right hand and a terrifying black shadow condensed on his body, as if Hanju was using the Grand Unity aspect. The other 4 divine punishers were also prepared to fight. Their gazes landed on the huge stone tablet in front of them. Figures were surging from the countless caves. More and more appeared, as if it was an ant nest or a race was hidden. Inside. At this moment, blood words appeared on the surface of the stone tablet and interwove between the various holes. They were dense and made one's scalp tingle. "Chaotic Fiend Celestial. Very good, you suit me very well." A cold voice sounded. The language was strange, but the 5 great divine punishers were strong and could understand what he meant. Han-Tuo raised his eyebrows and shouted, "Kill this thing!" The 5 great divine punishers attacked together. Dermic powers shook the void. 5 divine lights of different colors collided with the huge stone tablet and emitted a dazzling light that swept in all directions, causing the void to lose all color. In the third Tao field, Hanju focused on cultivating. The primordial world in the depths of his soul continued to expand. His supreme power strengthened and his understanding of the power of creation deepened. He began to break through. He successfully broke through 5,000 years later. Mid-stage Great Tao Supreme Realm. Hanju smiled. He finally broke through. He checked the emails. Name, Hanju, lifespan, 5,425,122, 90,39,999,999,999, 999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999, 99,999,999. Race, primordial fiend celestial, immeasurable emperor. Cultivation, mid-stage great Tao supreme realm, perfect sage. Technique, primordial chaos reincarnation great Tao, heavenly cycle body tempering. Great Tao of life and death, great Tao of karma, great Tao of extreme origin. His lifespan had increased by 9 times. Hanju was in a good mood. It was a surprise as usual. Who would mind living longer? Hanju began to consolidate his cultivation. 3,000 years later, his cultivation finally stabilized. He began to improve his mystical power next. 500 years later, Hanju learned 500 new fiend celestial dharma idols. He had 2449 now. He was already very close to the 3,000 fiend celestial dharma idols. However, there was still no Tao of creation among these fiend celestial dharma idols. Hanju opened his eyes and started the simulation trial. It was still the foolish sword sage. The foolish sword sage of the great Tao supreme realm was still stronger than the divine authority generals. He was very suitable as a template. Hanju challenged 10,000 foolish sword sages in one go. Instant kill! How terrifying was that when 2,449 fiend celestial dharma idols fused together? They crushed everything in their path and directly killed 10,000 foolish sword sages. Hanju continued to challenge 20,000 foolish sword sages. He didn't win even after fighting for an hour. He was not discouraged. Instead, he was excited. Only with difficulties could one have fighting spirit. Several days later, Hanju opened his eyes and was satisfied. His limit was 25,000 foolish sword sages. It was already very terrifying. After all, the foolish sword sage was also a great Tao supreme. The chaos would collapse if such a battle really happened. The current chaos could not withstand so many great Tao supremacies. Hanju wanted to curse the enemy to celebrate, but he suddenly didn't know who to curse. The enemies were either dead or hiding. No one dared to provoke him on the surface. Hanju felt inexplicably regretful. He was afraid of having too many enemies in the past, but now, he hoped that there would be too many. He couldn't use his mystical powers without an enemy. Looks like my Tao heart still needs refinement, Hanju muttered to himself with firm eyes. He thought about ninth chaos, about the chaotic consciousness, and then about the formless transcendent deity. He still had a long way to go. Hanju checked the emails. The recent circle of friends was not peaceful anymore. It was mainly Han Tuo, Dao Sovereign, and Huang Zuantian. Hanju suddenly noticed that the evil heavenly emperor and ancestor Shi Tian had been very well behaved recently, as if they had disappeared. These two leaders were both ambitious and must be plotting something. Hanju called Han Qinger in after reading the emails for a while. Han Qinger was stuck at the perfected pseudo-sage realm and could not attain the Tao. It was mainly because she had little experience and her Tao heart was unstable. She didn't find her own Tao. Han Qinger looked depressed after entering the temple. Father, am I not talented? She thought that her father wanted to scold her about cultivation. After all, she had not broken through in so many years. She was angry. Back then, she had said that she wanted to surpass her brother. Now, it seemed that she had been thinking too much. What was potential below the sage realm? She even wondered if she should go out and seek opportunities. VPN. Hanju smiled. Your potential is already good enough. I'll help you attain the Tao. Really? Han Qinger was pleasantly surprised. Han Qinger looked at him in admiration upon hearing this. She pounced into his arms and started to act spoiled. Hanju pushed her away helplessly and said, "A woman can't be too close to her father when she grows up. Do you understand? You're no longer a..." Han Qinger giggled. What? I'll always be your daughter. 100 years of preaching passed in a flash. Han Qinger opened her eyes and exclaimed, "What a powerful Tao! Father, what Tao is this?" Great Tao of extreme origin. I see many figures walking on this great Tao's path. Who are they? My disciples. They also cultivate this Tao. Those before you are all stronger than you. So many? Han Qinger was shocked. At that time, she stood on the great Tao of extreme origin and looked forward. She couldn't see the end, but she could see many figures. The distance between them was greater than the Tao pursuer behind her. She asked curiously, "Who's the strongest among your disciples?" Hanju pondered for a moment and said, "Murongqi, my grand disciple." Murongqi? Han Qinger had never heard of this name. She had thought that it was Jiang Jieshi, but she didn't expect that the terrifying Jiang Jieshi could not be ranked first. Where's Jiang Jieshi? Him. He's not in the top 10. His cultivation level has not increased all these years. He's still exploring his own Tao creation. Hanju smiled. He was telling the truth. Jiang Jieshi had broken through too quickly in this life and needed to settle down. Otherwise, his foundation would be unstable. Hanju would personally teach him after some time. At this moment, a black vortex appeared behind Hanju. Han Qinger widened her eyes and was about to ask what this was when Hanju stood up and struck out with his palm. A hand that had just emerged from the black vortex was slapped away by him. Hanju sensed carefully. The one who used the invocation technique was Han Tuo, but he was chased by the enemy as soon as he used it. It seemed that this kid's enemy was not simple.